Hey internets, it's Jake from Mini Terrain Domain, and this is Interlude. Wait, let me try that again. This is Scribes and Scrolls, the Candlekeep Mysteries. And this is Interlude 7 with Doc. Is pretty obvious since I've got Gary here, and only Gary here. And this interlude is called I Had a Dream That You Were Calling. And in just a moment, we're going to sort of set up the scene, and we're going to have a one-on-one session for a little bit. If you are new here, this is something we do sort of at the end of the calendar year. And we've done at least one other one as a special one-off. But it's an opportunity to pre-record some one-on-one sessions and then give ourselves, our production, the month of December off while still having content for you to watch. Which does mean we are not live. You'll see there are no domain dice, no domain tomes that are in play. But we will probably be there in chat with you. At least one of us. I know I will be. And who knows who else. So couple of quick announcements, and then Gary and I are going to get into this this interlude. So as I mentioned, every Monday for the rest of December will be a new interlude. At the recording of this one, this is our first one that we're recording too, so I don't know what the order that they're going to appear in is. But you can follow me on Twitter, if it hasn't burnt to the ground yet, at mtd_Jake, or you can follow me at mtdjake, no underscore, on the Hive social, where I will be posting when we go live with these. Since domain tomes are not in play, and I've already told you that we're going to be off, the only other announcement that I want to tell you before we get started is to remind you that you matter. Your presence on this earth makes a difference, whether you believe it or not. It's true. We talk about mental health always before every event that we do on stream because it is so important. And we want to just make sure that you know that it is okay to not be okay. But you do not have to struggle alone. At any time, you can come into our chat and type !help. And a couple of URLs will show up on the screen. They will also show up at the bottom of the screen periodically throughout the stream and the VOD. Findahelpline.com, or you can check out takethis.org in their growing list of resources. They are excellent websites with lots of great resources for you. Visit those sites, bookmark them, save them for yourself, save them for a friend, and remember, you matter. With that, I think it's time to play some Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
Doc, we are going to pick up at the point where, while in Olliston's hold, after everybody had left you alone in the tavern. Again, you made your way out into the streets of this quiet, fortified town, moving through the darkened alleyways, making sure that nobody could see you, nobody was following you, until you were sure that you were alone. Why don't you take us back to that very moment and what you do in that alley?
So, I look around and my eyes are sort of darting back and forth. I see in the distance there are some guards who are patrolling. They're not really paying attention to me, but I utter a word that's foreign and guttural, and slowly, as if paint was dripping down from the top of my head, covering my body as if it was to wiping me from existence. Slowly, I'm fading out until I appear in what can only be described as a void. There's nothing but empty space around me, and I don't see anything immediately.
In this inky blackness, you do sense at your periphery a light coming from somewhere. But as you turn your head, that light just seems to constantly be at your periphery. You're not able to see anything. You stand there in the silence of this void. You could possibly, under different circumstances, maybe only hear the sound of your blood rushing through your veins or hear your heartbeat, but that's not the case for you.
So I'm gonna say, I'm gonna sort of look around and I see this light. Um, well, you called me. I'm here.
As you say this, you see a very thin sliver of light. It's as if this light that you can see in your peripheral vision seems to sort of narrow in and just and connect in front of your vision, splitting your view now with this dim light, forming a sort of horizon. And there is a bit of ambient light that now seems to catch on your white lab coat and your pale skin. You can see yourself in this void. Looking down, though you don't feel the pressure of standing on the ground, you see below your feet the excuse me, the faintest trace of a reflective surface. You can just make out in this, almost as if it's a polished black marble, your own reflection. But it also is taking on that look of, if you've ever looked through or at your reflection in a double paned window, or one of those one-way mirrors that they have this sort of extra layer to it, so there's like a duplication of your reflection. Except in your case, Doc, you can see the faint traces and outlines of at least 2 or 3 other figures, as if they are standing where you are standing, and slightly their size and the rhythm of their movement is just enough that you seem to sort of slightly waver in and out. You then become aware, mostly through through feeling it, not so much hearing it, this incredibly intense, bassy humming and thrumming. You feel it in your very bones, just this deep and you feel a shadow cast over from behind.
So before he turns around, Doc is gonna sort of drop to one knee. He's gonna look sort of more closely at the figures on the ground, and he's gonna sort of like polish it with his palm, and then look more closely.
You tell me what you see there.
It's almost like Doc's eyes, which are often quite without expression are more expressive and almost trying to communicate something to him. Not like in a way that he can discern, but it's almost as though the reflection of the person that he's looking at is different than he might expect. So he will raise his hand and the hand will go up, but there's something about the eyes that are different than when he looks at himself in a mirror. And the figures behind him, he tries to catch them with his eyes, but it's almost like they're perpetually trying to dart out of his view, as if actively avoiding his gaze. And he's gonna stand up and he's gonna look down and he's gonna say, "Huh." And the last thing that he sees as he's looking down at himself is a look of deep sadness, which is hard for him to interpret because it's not something he's really ever felt before, beyond trying to understand it in words. But it's the last thing he sees as he turns around and tries to catch the shadow that's now behind him.
You turn around and you find yourself staring straight into the massive open maw of what looks to be a brass metallic dragon. And when I say brass metallic dragon, I mean this appears to be a dragon that's metal and made of brass, carved from or sculpted into the metal. Its open mouth, just beyond its teeth, you see a greater than 5-foot diameter, almost perfect circle. And it is less than 3 feet from your face. Shifting, not even having to shift, but you see that where this dragon seems to extend in a straight line away from you, you begin to see the front end of something that it is attached to. It extends for a good probably 50, 60 feet before you see the rest of this thing that is widened out and risen up. The shape is not something at all unfamiliar with you, though in this place it seems a bit out of sorts. It looks like a sailing ship, but with no sails. Its lines are different. It doesn't look like it would be at home on the water. In part because as you even just shift ever so slightly, you see the full length of this dragon and you realize you are staring down the barrel of a massive cannon mounted on the front of this ship that is more than half the length of this ship. And you can just see further back along the deck lines, you can see movement. They would be roughly 60 feet away from you on this vessel. You hear a voice at this point as one of them, and it's almost as if there's a spotlight behind them, so they're sort of silhouetted with this like rays of light, so you can't quite see them, but you see this figure looking out, and then you hear a voice say, It doesn't look like... No, it's not a Kindori. It's certainly not a murder comet. Could be a scaver.
Doc is going to look down at the ground, and since he has nobody to talk to, but ultimately he needs to remind everybody that he's the smartest person wherever he goes. He's going to look down and he's going to say, airship? And the reflection, almost like it's going to be delayed. It's not going to be a direct reflection. It's going to nod and say, airship. And Doc is going to look at the cannon. Hello.
I say, old boy, are you in distress?
No. Do I appear in distress? Are you in distress? Do you need my help?
Did you fall overboard? Were you rejected or ejected from a vessel? Are you lost?
No. Are you lost? Were you rejected from a vessel? Are you feeling okay? Are you happy? Do you have friends on whom you can count on and confide?
It's asking me strange questions I don't know how to answer. You see a couple more figures coming up behind it. And actually, let me check something. You feel yourself lifted into the air. It's a strange sensation because you don't feel like you would normally. Like, you've flown. There's no sensation of the pull of gravity against you. You just can see yourself. If anything, it looks more like the ship is lowering. And then you feel yourself begin to drift forward. And you can now see, as your vantage point changes, you are looking down across this 150-foot vessel. It does have near the back a singular mast that rises up. But you can see that there's close to a dozen people on deck. And two of them are, we'll say, humanoid from your viewpoint, as they are making gestures that you as a spellcaster would recognize. That one of them has cast a levitation spell on you, and the other one is using telekinesis to pull you towards the vessel.
Okay. Usually you ask people before you cast spells on them, but maybe that's just where I'm from. Maybe where you're from, being rude is the way to be polite. Is that correct? Is insulting people the way that you say hello?
As you are pulled closer, you see that the two spellcasters that are manipulating you, one of them appears to be a very tall insectoid creature and is casting with two hands, while two smaller arms are sort of on standby, one on its hip and another near some handle of some weapon. The other one, it has a basic bipedal appearance to it, but the light seems to reflect off of it almost in the same way it would across water. You don't see any facial features. And then one of the other many figures on deck comes striding forward. You see a figure bedecked in the regalia of a high military office. And as she begins walking down a set of steps and towards you, she moves with that slow, deliberate way of somebody who is used to having others wait for her. And you can hear her footsteps resounding towards you because of her very large size, as she is a bipedal being, but has the face and head and features of a hippopotamus.
As all of this is going on, Doc doesn't really have to do anything, so he's going to open up his book and he's going to glance up at the creature casting spells. He's like, okay, that's this is a very strange voyage, but I feel an obligation to understand what's happening. So, and he's going to point at the one insectoid creature. Is going to say space mantis, and then he's going to look at and he's going to scratch his head, and he's going to look at the person with no features, and he's going to say, I'm going to call you a puddlekin. And he's looking at who he assumes is the captain at this point. Good name. Nope, it's not come to me yet, but it will. I promise.
This whole time you're being brought slowly, telekinetically, along the full length of this massive cannon towards the deck. And you see that there are 8 other of these hippopotamus folk in various degrees of regalia, all of them seeming to have some sort of relation to military rank. You are brought until you are levitating about 20 feet in the air above the deck, and basically looking almost straight down at this leader. And she looks up at you and says, "You are very fortunate that we were able to rescue you from the void. I'm going to assume that you have been out there for an extraordinarily long time, as you appear to be rather delirious. Do you know where you are? Do you know what your name is?"
No. You can call me Doc, though.
Doc, are you some sort of doctor? A surgeon, perhaps?
Yes.
Do you have experience with surgeries, basic medical needs, pulling of teeth, haircuts?
So, if I might suggest, in the order of your questions, I think that one should have been first, because you asked if I was a surgeon and did surgeries, and then you asked if I had other experience related to that. It feels like a missed opportunity to build to a crescendo. When you're asking people questions, when you're trying to create a dialogue, it's easier for people to follow if you have a logical order to the things that you have to say. If you lack that logical order, people may subconsciously tune you out and your message might be lost. Is that what you want? Do you want to mislead people from your message?
Next to this woman is another one of these beings wearing rank that seems to indicate of slightly less stature than this woman. Kind of leans over and says, If I may speak freely, ma'am. Yes, yes. Have about it, Captain Brimsey. Well, Admiral, it seems as though this one is perhaps a bit more of a... I believe the slang term is shrink. I don't see that he would be so very useful to our purposes. Is this true? Are you a shrink? You see, as you raise your hand, at least all of them except for these two in charge, they reach towards their sides for weapons of some kind. They don't draw them. What's it gonna do? What is the meaning of this gesture? Is this a hostility? A question?
Yes. Do you not have questions where you're from?
Of course we have questions. Don't be absurd.
Okay. Well, my question is, why couldn't I be both? I mean, if you assume that I'm a shrink, but after being asked if I was a surgeon and I said yes, would that make me a liar?
The truth of whatever statement you might have is yet to be ascertained. Yes. What is it, Lieutenant Beckett? Pardon me, Captain, but shrink is not an appropriate term. I dare say that it would be more appropriate to refer to them as a mental health professional. If that is in fact your profession. Regardless, that is all. Yes, sir. Thank you, Lieutenant Beckett.
And as the captain says, "Thank you, Lieutenant Beckett," ha ha, and then he starts writing obstinentimus.
The one who seems to be the most in charge turns to the two mages and says, "Clock took to clock. Groggle blep. Let him down gently." And you see the two mages maneuver, and you are lowered. As you get within a little bit closer to the deck, you actually suddenly, not like just suddenly like dropping, but you feel like you're passing through some sort of field. You suddenly feel the pull of gravity as they lower you, and you now feel the weight of gravity as you are set down on the deck of this vessel.
Doc is going to walk over to the side, and as a test, he's going to put his hand back outside the edge of it, presumably through what he expects would be the field.
As you reach out to the side, from here, you don't really feel a whole lot of difference. Actually, don't remember what the gravity field is, what the range is on it. But you do feel that there is some sort of gravitational force that is now affecting you while on this deck.
Self-contained gravity. Very interesting. Now, why did you?
Somebody reaches out and attempts to snatch your book out of your hand.
Well, I am going to attempt to resist that using athletics.
Okay, that is going to be an athletics check. So let me bring this individual up. Now that you're on deck, as you start saying this and writing down, yeah, they're going to. Okay.
A Doc's eyes are going to go white. and he doesn't see anything, but he has the memory of an echoing growl and the feeling of a powerful force trying to pull him forward to no effect. That is a 28.
That is better than my dirty 20. As this other one of these hippopotamus creatures makes a snatch for it, and you pull it away. And he looks up at you, and you can see these sort of bristles, almost like a extra long, like a mustache, as he looks at you and just goes, "Are you a spy? You have to tell me. Are you making notes about our military operation?"
Two things. One, I was perfectly happy minding my own business in the void. You, against my will, brought me onto your ship. That is point one. Point two, given that I am a stranger to you, a piece of advice when dealing with strangers, presumably, you don't know their capacity. So, trying to blatantly rob them could end poorly for you. And he's going to write something down, and he's going to close up his notebook, and he's going to slide it into his satchel, and he's going to look pointedly at the creature who attempted to rob him.
I was not stealing from you.
Clearly,
Confiscation.
you and I have very different ideas of what stealing is. You see, we're clearly from different places, but where I'm from, when you take something from someone else that doesn't belong to you, that's stealing. Sometimes, in some cases, you could lose a hand for that.
Make a persuasion or intimidation.
I will make a persuasion. That is a 23.
Admiral, I do not know how to deal with this individual. I don't understand why we had to go looking for them in the first place. And he huffs and turns away. The Admiral comes walking towards you. Please excuse Master-at-Arms Ryder. Oh, you have to understand that our entire crew was not entirely sure what it was we were going to find when we heeded the call. So finding you here is a bit of an anomaly. Allow me to attempt to smooth things over with an introduction. I am Admiral Myrtle Elizabeth Hunt, and this is my ship, the Leviathan. This is my crew, Captain William Crawford Brimsby, Chief Warrant Officer and Purser Timothy Edward Keaton, Lieutenant Cecily Eloise Beckett. You've already met Master-at-Arms Conrad Bartholomew Ryder. Petty Officer Avelina Victoria Wellington. Shipsman Emma Hermione Chamberlain. Shipsman's Apprentice Roland Asher Bainbridge. Shipsman Recruit and my son, Jeffrey Peregrine Hunt. You have also had informal dealings with, indicating the two spellcasters, Gorogleb Blip and Clock Tuk Tuk Clock.
Well, this was wonderful. So, do you have need of a surgeon? Is that why you were asking? Does someone need a boil removed or an arm set? I've done work on the brain, though admittedly not as much as I'd like.
It was a question of opportunity, you see. Well, yes, we are without a ship's surgeon. Unfortunately, our previous surgeon was rather quickly and unceremoniously removed from the deck of the ship. Let's just say that excessive drinking on board a vessel such as this in the astral sea can be quite dangerous. But that was merely a question of opportunity. Inquiring as to your identity, well, that is a little more pressing. As you see, we did not just happen upon you. You were where we expected you to be.
Well, great. Great.
Where do you come from?
Where do I come from? That is a difficult question, to which I cannot offer specifics. However, generally, I come from the environs of Faerun, on a world called Toril.
I know of Toril. I have not been. I have heard that it has quite a rather... Well, I've heard that from traveling just a mere few thousand miles, you can move from frosty, ice-cold mountains to the harshest deserts, with verdant lands in between. It seems rather unusual to have one planet have so many various climates.
I can't say with much certainty that I've experienced worlds other than Toril. So, to me, it all seems quite normal. However, if it's not familiar to you, then I acknowledge that that might be strange. But I'm curious. You said you were called. I said I was called. Who called you? And what did they say?
You hear a soft, very gentle clearing of the throat. And immediately everybody turns to look back at where this sort of upper deck area is that the Admiral came from. And you see a very tall and lithe individual. Long, straight, auburn hair, long pointed ears, very delicate features. As they walk forward, almost seeming to glide, but their movements are just so precise. As they come towards you, you see some sort of elf, but you're not quite familiar with the features of this elf. They look at you. It was I who heard you were calling. Rather, I had a dream that you were calling, and I followed that. I am certain now, through your conversations, hearing your voice, that it was you. Or at least it was some aspect of you. You said that you heard a calling.
So I said that you said that I said that I heard that you heard a calling?
You have a very peculiar way of speaking. Allow me to rephrase. Did you say that you were called?
Yes.
By whom were you called?
I don't know. But it felt like the right place to go at the time.
Are you telling us that you heard a call and by sheer force of will you left your homeworld of Torir to enter into the astral sea?
It wasn't will so much as, you know, I have this special garment, and he's gonna sort of shake his cloak.
Ah. Extraplanar travel achieved through enchanted items. Well, I understand that concept much more. I suppose I shouldn't question why you would so willingly step into the unknown when I was able to convince the Admiral and the rest of the crew that we should also follow, well, my dream. It seems that, though wittingly or not, we are perhaps the source of one another's calling. I am Elar Firahel.
Great. Alar. Wonderful. So why are we here?
Well, as I said, I believed that I was called to find you. Now, knowing what lies ahead of us, I believe that perhaps you are supposed to aid us, but also it is possible that you will find something yourself, answers to an unasked question. What, I don't know, but perhaps you will find that here. You have a peculiar aura about you. When I look at you, it is as if I am not quite able to fix my gaze fully upon you. When I try to focus too intently on you, my eyes sort of slide away, and I swear for a moment somebody else is standing there. It is most peculiar.
Weird.
Oh, go ahead.
You said that I had to help you do some epic quest. What is this epic quest, and are we going to take your flying ship to get there? Doc is like...
You hear a little bit of laughter from some of the crew, and the Admiral just sort of clears her throat, and everybody immediately stops. Well, of course we are going to take The Leviathan. It is how we travel the astral sea and through wild space. There is no other way. How you came to be here, just floating in the void, well, you are lucky. Something didn't find you first.
You know, I've heard that before. People have said, Doc, you're lucky. But I wonder if I get lucky so often, is that really a coincidence? Or is it a habit?
Perhaps that is something you can answer for yourself while we get underway.
I mean, I thought I was being clearly rhetorical, but do you have rhetoric here in the weird space land?
She doesn't seem to have registered what you said as she looks around her and she says, I said that is something we can look at or you can answer for yourself while we are underway. And she's not looking at you, and as she says that, all of a sudden the rest of the crew sort of, oh, yes, and immediately start running around and taking care of various things. The Admiral Hunt turns to you and says, please, if you would, join me aboard the signal deck. The view will be much better from up there. And she motions to you towards the stairs. And the elf Alar Furahel also strides up there. As you climb up the couple levels to this topmost deck, you see that there is not what you had seen on I forgot the name of it, the Sinful Dragon, the last ship you were on. You saw there was a keel, a ship's wheel, and the captain or somebody would stand there and would steer the ship, and there were sails. What you see instead is what looks like it actually looks very similar in style to the chairs that were in the dining room of the extra dimensional space when you first arrived at Candlekeep. Except it doesn't have any legs. It just seems to float. And Alar Furahel walks over to this chair, and out from underneath it comes a couple of, they look like little footstools. They extend out like steps, and they step up onto them, turn, and lower themselves into the seat. And you see as they do, this look sort of go across their eyes. And the Admiral says, very well, get us underway. And you see Alar Furahel make very subtle gestures and motions. You see their eyelids flicker a little bit, and you feel a slight lurch as this massive ship begins to move, and it turns faster and tighter than any waterborne ship you've seen. And it begins traversing through space. What would you like to do now that you are witnessing this? Is there anything you would like to do?
Doc is going to sort of look around, and he's going to see them sailing across the astral sea, and he's going to see the darkness around them, and he's said, you know, I've always said this is the final frontier.
Yes, that is what has been said.
So you said something about something and you're going on this epic quest, and maybe it was destiny, maybe it was luck for you that I appeared where I did because you might need my assistance. I tend to be a big helper. You know, I have many skills and often they are very useful. I'm also probably the smartest person you'll ever meet. And that's not humility. That's just honesty.
Well, perhaps that remains to be seen. The epic quest, those are your words. Though, when undertaking missions aboard the Leviathan, there is always a certain degree of epicness to it, and all of the others begin to sort of, yeah, here, as they are all maintaining the various components of this ship. I would like you to roll me a D100, please.
Sure. $61.
All right. As you are moving through this void, you begin to notice that what was just pure inky blackness in all directions, except for that horizon line. Gradually, you notice that there are colors beginning to appear, and all around you, you see above, below, to all sides, you see a myriad stars coming into view. Then you catch movement just off to the left side of the ship. And you see what looks to be a school or pod or whatever they're called of, well, to you, they probably look like sharks. But they are flying through open space. And you watch as they maneuver, sort of moving together, and they, catching sight of the ship, for a little while they begin to circle around the ship. They look very much like any shark you would have seen on Toril, with the exception of they have multiple sets of fins running along their body, and instead of the eyes on either side near the front of their face, they just have this long, almost like a snout with an eye coming out the front of it.
And then Doc is going to sort of look closely, and he's going to tap his chin, and he's going to say, Megalosaurus. Megalosaurus. Mm-hmm.
The Admiral leans over and says, "Those are scavers."
Scavers.
Scavers. Specifically, those are grey scavers. Pretty harmless, unless you end up unless you end up overboard.
Megalosaurus is a far better name than gray scaver. Haven't you ever heard of branding?
They are not looking to brand themselves. They are scavengers.
Is that why they're called scavers?
You catch on quick.
Yes, as I said, I'm the smartest person you'll probably ever meet.
Well, we shall see.
You keep using that phrase. I don't think it means what you think it means. Anyway, you were talking about the epic quest.
We are on a quest. How epic it is will... well, that remains to be seen. We are searching for a very valuable treasure. We
As
hope...
most quests do?
well, in this case, we know what the treasure is. And we know how to retrieve it once we find it. But first, we have to find it. So we are keeping an eye out, looking for signs. On your for real, do you have dragons?
Yes.
Are they called dragons, or do you call them Reptilius Draconis or something like this?
We call them dragons. Reptilius Draconis is far too much of a mouthful for anyone to say. That is bad branding. And, frankly, won't tell a very good story.
Are you a doctor, or are you in marketing?
I think any good doctor has to be able to market themselves, but as I said, I'm the smartest person you'll ever meet, so pretty much know most everything about everything.
Well, smartest person I've ever met.
Uh-huh.
What do you know about lunar dragons?
Lunar dragons. Well, I didn't know such a thing existed. However, if I had to guess, I would say lunar dragons are something along the opposite of solar dragons. Given that they are nightly creatures, I suspect that they might be generally evil. Though I don't try to be specious, so I would say that it's hard to pin down anyone at any time. But generally, they may lean toward that because they go to the night. And I'm sure, like most dragons, they have a very large horde. And since we're in space, I assume they fly around and stuff. In space.
So,
How'd I do?
your deductions basing on your knowledge that you already have has given you a little bit of insight. Lunar dragons do tend to be a bit more towards the... well, they're a bit more capricious, and they are very xenophobic. They have treasure hoards, but it's less for them about building up a hoard than it is about taking treasure from others. They would rather you had nothing and they had nothing, if it came down to it, at least in my experience. But what we are looking for is not measured in gold and silver and platinum. It's not measured in gemstones or magical relics. Though we hope to turn it into something along those lines.
Since we're out in space, Are there any other currencies here other than platinum or copper or silver or gold? No, just those four?
That's a great question that I, the DM, don't know the answer to right now.
Well, okay. Because I've heard of a mythical fifth currency, and I figured
Don't you
since
dare.
space is weird, maybe it would exist here.
Don't do it. Don't do it. As the Admiral is giving you a side eye. Are you making up currencies?
I mean, that's a very interesting question. And let's break down why it's an interesting question. First, as I mentioned, there's a mythical fifth currency. That we don't have it on Toriel. But since we're up in space, I figured you might have it as things are strange here. But given that it's mythical, while I myself didn't make it up, someone made it up. Ergo, it is made up. No matter your opinion on the reality of this, someone made it up.
I'm beginning to realize that you like to hear the sound of your own voice.
I don't not like the sound of my own voice. That would be a bit of a curse if when you spoke, you disliked the sound of your own voice, because after all, when you speak, your voice is the only one you can hear.
Have you anything more to say about this supposed mythical fifth currency?
No, I was just asking you if it existed. Here out in space.
Copper, silver, gold, platinum, gems, and gunpowder are the only currencies that we are concerned with. Yes, that is why.
Gunpowder is not technically a currency, more of a trade good, although I could see why you would position it in such a way, as a currency of a sort. But
Amongst
let us...
our people, it is considered as good as currency.
All right, well, good as currency, mythical sixth currency, then excuse me, here there's 5 currencies already. Mythical sixth currency that no one's ever heard of. Anyway, sorry, we were talking about lunar dragons, capricious, want to take others, would rather have nothing if you had nothing, etc., etc. Please continue. I'm assuming there's a particular, you said there's a particular object. It is my estimation that this lunar dragon has this or knows where it is. Something. I'm just hoping to get closer to the end so that I can, you know.
We are currently looking for a lair of a female lunar dragon that we know nests in this part of wild space. When we find her, we will have found what we seek. We need only to get her out of her lair, at which point we can take it.
Yes, that is a scintillating plan. But you don't know where it is. So we're looking for it now. What object in particular are we seeking?
We are looking for a rather small moon.
All right. And what does one do with a small moon?
Well, if one is a lunar dragon, then one makes their lair within, digging deep tunnels, whereupon they lay their eggs.
Yeah, yes. Specifically, what is the object that you are seeking? I understood from context that the lunar dragon would nest on a lunar surface or below the lunar surface.
The Admiral turns to the elf and says, Eola Firahel, are you certain that it is necessary that we have this individual on board? And the elves, one of their eyes sort of goes translucent. The whiteness goes away, and you can see almost as if when somebody has their eyes closed and they just open one eye to look at you, and they just glance over at you, and you see a slight smirk, and they just give a nod. Well, if you would take just a moment, just a brief break, a slight respite, if you will, from being a complete and total pompous ass, you might have heard, as I was saying, it is where they lay their eggs. The eggs, Doctor. That is the prize.
Okay, but you didn't say that.
You
said
did.
They had treasure, and then... Don't get frustrated. There's no reason to get frustrated. It's just... clarity and specificity of language is important for effective communication. So, you're looking for lunar dragon eggs. And why?
They are incredibly valuable. If you are looking to find some sort of connection as to why you need to be involved with this, then I am just as much at a loss as you are. But I trust my spelljammer.
Well, no, I can't say that I'm looking for a deeper meaning. Truthfully, I make the potential of success in every plan in which I participate much higher. So if that's at the very least why I was called to help you, then that's why I was called to help you, as I make your plan more likely to succeed, in as much as your plan is to blunder around the astral sea looking for a moon to find a dragon and stealing their eggs.
You make it very difficult to not become exasperated with you. Blunder about. How, of all the most absurd things I have heard, the gift do not blunder about. This is a bombard-class vessel. The Leviathan is renowned throughout wild space. We do not blunder. We sail with purpose. I swear,
it is a lovely ship.
I am going to put you in the cannon and fire you at the dragon when we see it.
Somebody's a little touchy. But let's not talk about that. Let's instead talk about how I might be able to assist you. Now, I don't know a lot about lunar dragon ecology, but I suppose my question is, how do you propose to lure them away from their nest if they are currently brooding a clutch of eggs? Now, that is a very interesting question, and I say that because you seem to only have one large, very impressive ship. The Leviathan, I almost said it is a lovely and imposing name. Were I to have a ship of my own, it would certainly be a name that I would consider for it. But, how do you propose to lure a brooding dragon away from its clutch of eggs? That is the question that I have, as it was fundamental to the second part of your plan before the blundering on space. We're not talking about that.
When we find the moon, we intend to flush it out. When it is out, we will send a raiding party in to retrieve the clutch. Then we will make our escape. It is a near foolproof plan.
Yes, this is a next level multi-tiered plan, most certainly.
You hear from find it. You hear from up near the top of this singular mast that's on one of the slightly lower decks from the deck that you are on. The mast rises up, and you see there's a little bit of a crow's nest up there. And the one that was introduced as shipsman's recruit, Jeffrey Peregrine Hunt, the son of the admiral. You hear him give a whistle and says, "Moon ho!" and is pointing off to the starboard bow. And looking in that direction, you can see what indeed looks like some ways away, but a rather smallish moon. I mean, it's a good sized chunk of rock floating here in space. It has, from what you can see, what you would expect to be a lunar surface, though it's a bit grayer, almost a blue-gray in appearance. It does seem to be rather missing a planetary surface to be revolving around. But nonetheless, you see this this moon as you begin to approach. As soon as the moon is called forth, or called out that it's there, you see the crew begin rushing around, and on one of the lower decks, 2 decks below where you are, where this massive cannon comes towards the center of the ship, along the railings of the ship, along the gunnels, are on each side 5 very large 5 of these very large cannonballs. There is on the fantail deck, which is 1 deck below where you are, sort of in front of where this mast is, there's actually a crane, and one of the crew is in there sort of operating some cranks, and the crane begins to move around as they're shifting it around, and they lower on a boom, they lower this contraption down that clamps around one of these cannonballs, and then they begin to shift it, raise it up a little bit. 2 more down on the ground are helping to maneuver it as they put it in position to load it into the actual cannon as they are making their preparations. You see it's just a hive of activity as everybody is preparing. There's actually on okay, sorry. Yes, there's 3 decks. So you're on the signal deck. There's the fantail deck below that, and then the cannon deck.
Okay.
So there is a on the fantail deck, there are a couple of ballista there as well that are mounted. They swivel, but they're primarily at the back end because the entire front of this is dedicated. Literally 80% of this vessel appears to be dedicated to the massive cannon on the front.
Mm-hmm. So Doc is going to look around to the Admiral, and he's going to say, so this moon is uncharted then? Since if it was charted, you would have known where to find it.
At what point did I lead you to believe I didn't know where the moon was?
At various points throughout this conversation, you said in this general area there's a moon, etc., etc., there's a lunar dragon, so on and so forth.
Only meaning that we had not yet arrived to it. We knew where it was. We weren't just blundering about in space, as you so eloquently put it. It is a known moon.
What's it called?
It doesn't have a name.
Great. And Doc is going to write in his book, and he's going to sort of like draw a little map, and there's going to be a circle, and in the right above the circle, he's going to name the moon Doc, and then he's going to start. Then he's going to start writing. I only ask because I've composed a poem about the moon, and so now that I've been able to name it, I feel it's very appropriate. Would you like to hear it?
Sure, why not?
The poem is called Doc. Catching a light. In the darkness of space, it appears as a beacon of hope, yet like to serve as a siren to despair.
Is that it?
Yes. I just composed it on the spot. Did you expect an ode? A multi-volume book of some kind? I was only just inspired. It's been 15 seconds since we saw this moon. Less time since I named it.
In all honesty, I don't know what it was I expected, as nothing has proven to be within my realm of expectations since the moment we picked you up.
Yes, that's something that's common with me. I defy expectations in most scenarios and situations and events and conversations.
Well, hopefully you will find yourself to be of some use. Have you any experience in combat? Infiltration?
No.
You've mentioned you have surgical abilities. Do you at least have the ability to heal the wounded?
Yeah, sort of.
Can you carry things?
I mean, that's a ridiculous question. Everyone can carry things.
You hear from next to you, but what if we don't have any arms? And you see the one wizard as their arms just sort of goes and vanish into their body.
Well, Puddlekin, I'm glad that you asked. If you were to absorb an object of some kind, would you be able to carry it then without arms? Because you're clearly able to manipulate your form, as I suspected when I immediately saw you, when you so rudely cast a spell on me without my will and pulled me from the astral sea.
You're no fun. Very literal.
I get that a lot. But I like you attempted to make a joke. If it was funny, I would have laughed. Good effort.
I will work on my delivery. And you see as he moves off to the side, you see as he kind of pulls in the arms. What if I have no arms? What if I have no arms? And he seems to be practicing this joke. One of the other deckmates comes up to you and hands you a very bulky canvas. It's a bag, but it has harnesses and straps. And you already see a couple of them are putting their arms through these straps and cinching them up until you end up with, it's almost like putting on a vest, but you have a very large canvas sack in front of you.
Okay. So you want me to put this on?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll make it much easier.
All right. Doc will put it on as best as he can figure out, which is pretty good since he's the smartest person around.
All right. Everybody, at the ready. When we fire the cannon, she will take to the orbit around the moon and will seek us out, at which time the retrievers will go in through the breach, taking advantage of the gravity well, retrieve what you can, and we will bring you back. If we act quickly, we can be out of here before she has a chance to even know what we've done. Are you ready? And you see everybody around is going, yeah!
Woo!
And you are sitting at a range of just a couple, what looks like, I mean, it looks like you could probably throw something in and it would head towards this small moon. And when I say small, I'm talking like Super Mario Galaxy, when you get on these little orbs and you can see the full sphere of it. If I had to put a size on it, I would say maybe a quarter mile to a half mile in total diameter.
Got it. Okay.
And you see that the three that were helping to load the cannon, the two that are down low, move into position, and you see one of them take a I can't think of what it's called right now, but like a taper thing, and touch it to a fuse, and you just see this massive fuse go disappears inside the cannon. And I would like you to make a Constitution saving throw.
That is a 22.
You are not deafened.
That's good.
But it is a ridiculously loud explosion. The entire vessel, you feel, wants to move backwards. But also you can see that Aelar Firahel has clenched the hands of this chair and seems to be controlling the ship, willing it forward against the rush of this explosive outburst of this cannon. Almost instantly, you see this massive belch of flame come out the end of the cannon that's shaped like a big brass dragon. And at the head of this gout of flame is one of these massive 10-ton cannonballs. It slams into the surface of the moon and you see this cloud just and then you see along the surface where this struck, you see cracks, spider webbing off in all different directions. And you hear some of the crew are looking at one another, and they're like, that shouldn't be happening. But report, what's happening? Admiral, it appears that the moon is splitting. I don't know, Doc, if you would have any particular knowledge about, have any of your studies been in astronomy?
For sure.
Go ahead and make at advantage a history check. Or a straight intelligence, however you want to roll that.
Yeah, history is all I got. But that is a 22.
From some of the studies that you've done in your past, you know that even with the massive size of these cannonballs and the relatively small size of this, at most, because of the nature of these lunar entities, they tend to be a bit more porous rock. It's very unusual that it would crack across the surface like that. It's more likely that the porous nature would absorb it and create a massive hole or crater where this impact happened. This seems to indicate that this moon is comprised of a much solider material, much more solid material than what was expected. As go ahead.
Doc is going to sort of scratch his nose a little bit, and he's going to is he able to tell, so his mind immediately jumps to metal deposits, unexpected metal deposits. Is there any way that he can, through the crack, notice if any of that might be existent? I'm gonna make like an investigation check or something.
Go ahead and make an investigation check.
You can do it. Oh, what did I get? Okay, 23. He is going to. His eyes are going to go white, and he feels in the moment blowing dust on his skin, and his eyes open, and he's no longer on the signal deck of the Leviathan. He's in a desert, but it's ridged by an oasis of green, and in front of him he sees what looks to be a canvas, a heavy tent of some kind, and he hears a laughter coming from inside it. That's a 27 investigation.
So a couple of things happen that you notice with that eye of a roll. One, you notice that some of the cracking is along the surface.
Okay.
What looked from a distance to be lunar dust is actually a very almost like black ice. It's this frost that's would have been almost invisible had you set foot on the surface. You would have found it very dangerous to step on, most likely. So you're seeing basically like a surface layer of frost that's been compromised and is cracking all across it. You also hear the sound of just this ghostly sort of moan Whether it's air escaping from within this thing or not, you're unsure. You also notice that some of the dust clouds seem to be roll a d4.
3.
There are 3 dust clouds that have sort of, because I mean it was a cannonball. It hit the surface of the planet, and most of the dust just went out in this ring. But you notice at 3 points where the dust seems to be swirling and forming into almost like tornadoes, and they're rising upward, and they are moving towards the Leviathan. The last thing, and probably the most important in terms of your initial investigation, it is not unseen or undetected metals that have caused this. The cracking that you are seeing is exactly what you would expect bone to do.
Okay. So, Doc is gonna look back to the, Admiral, and he's gonna say, "So, how big are lunar dragons? Is it possible that's a lunar dragon?"
As the Admiral starts to open her mouth, you just see as she points and looking back at this hole that was punched in the surface here, you see a elongated neck and face of a dragon. It has these almost very thin and almost like fins that kind of come all around its face and beard, up along here and all down its neck. And you see as giant claws reach out to the edges of the hole, and it kind of looks around, and then you just hear this as it pushes, and like a dart comes flying out through open space, and then the wings unfurl, and you see what would be classified as huge size. So it's still a pretty darn good sized thing. It's bigger by at least 3 or 4 times than the Mornverotheter, the red dragon wormling that you faced.
Okay.
But it is smaller than the spectral Mirum that you have also met. Okay. So you can surmise this is probably somewhere in the range of an adult lunar dragon. And it is coming right at the ship. At which point, already the crews are beginning to reload another cannonball, and a couple of the others, the Master at Arms, Ryder, Lieutenant Cecily Eloise Beckett, and the shipsman Emma Hermione Chamberlain. The 3 of them motion to you, and they start running along the deck, along the edge of the cannon. There's where the deck sort of goes out along almost like a gangplank all the way towards the side, and they are running at full tilt. And then you watch as they, with their canvas bags on them, they launch themselves off the front of the Leviathan. And there's a moment where they seem like you would expect jumping off the front of a ship, like diving. And then they sort of punch through some barrier, and their inertia just carries them through open space as they move toward the moon. What do you do?
Doc will follow them.
Excellent. As you do so, I would like you to make a athletics check. We'll do that.
Okay. That is a 22.
A 22. So as you leap off after the others, you watch as this dragon is hurling forward, and you see the wings open and it pushes itself forward. And it sort of does this thing with its wings where it turns a spiral. And whether trying to avoid you or just by chance, you are close enough that you could almost reach out and touch this dragon as it flies past you towards the Leviathan. As it does so, you can just hear this sort of screeching sound, and if you look back, you would just see as the dragon opens its mouth and a rush of frosty, almost like ice crystals, launch out of its mouth towards the ship. And then you disappear inside the hole that was punched into this moon. As you fly into the sudden darkness, you feel a set of hands reach out and grab hold of you and sort of stop you and slow you down as they sort of skid along this tunnel a little ways. And they sort of help to right you, and you can feel gravity is super low here. Every step, every movement you make, you can sort of bound a little bit. As the others around you, they say, "All right, we've made it inside. We now need to find the tunnel, find its clutch, gather them up, and make our escape. Let's go." And they quickly begin moving with a precision and with a sort of teamwork of a squad that has worked on similar type jobs before. The interior of this space, you see this tunnel was primarily punched by the cannonball, but you can see a couple places where it intersected existing tunnels. And they stop every once in a while to look and sort of gauge, it appears that they're looking at like claw marks and things to figure out which tunnels are the more recent as they begin to maneuver. With your previous investigation check, you are seeing where this cannon punched through. The interior of this space looks very much like bone. It has a porousness to it, but it is, if this were in fact some sort of bone, it's very solid in a lot of places. And not necessarily brittle like you would expect a bone exposed in space to be, except that it's of a gargantuan size. It can explain this cracking you saw along the surface.
Yeah, it's a calcified gargantuan lunar dragon. I get it. So does Doc. It's mostly Doc who gets it.
Well, you are free to think what you want. As the rest of the boarding party or landing party or raiding party is maneuvering through these caves, are you just following along with them?
Yep.
Okay. As you're making your way through, you can occasionally hear the echoing sounds of something happening outside. It's a little muffled coming through the tunnels, and but you can hear roars, and you can hear after about a minute or so, you hear the thunderous sound of the bombard cannon firing again. Why don't you go ahead and roll me a d20 and add 6 to it.
D20 and add 6. Okay.
Yep.
20.
A 20. All right. So, unbeknownst to you, as we sort of cut outside for a moment, the dragon flies across the bow of the ship, flaring its wings. The cannon fires and the dragon is struck. That 20 will hit the dragon. And that's going to do 16d10, so 88 damage to the dragon. But then it immediately... Nope. Its breath doesn't recharge, so it roars, and you hear more sounds of the cacophony of battle outside. With the roaring of this cannon, though, the whole interior caverns shudder and dust falls. And what you can smell is actually what you would expect from very old bone. Zero question that whatever this is, it's some sort of bone. After a few moments, you hear the master at arms call out, "It's over here! I found it!" And you enter into a chamber that, compared to the caverns you've been crawling through, is quite large.
Mm-hmm.
There is a section where it looks like the lunar dust or bone dust has been maneuvered into these like cushions, and there are currently... Where's my die? There we go. There are currently 6 of these large eggs that are... Where did it go? There are 6 of these eggs that have an almost obsidian look to them. And you can see as the Master at Arms rushes up to one, and he gets in really close, and his face is sort of reflected in it. As he breathes out, it sort of steam goes across it, and you realize that same black frost you saw on the surface of the exterior of this moon, you see on these eggs.
Mm-hmm.
They are very quickly maneuvering to push these eggs into these satchels. There's enough room to fit. The Master at Arms takes 2, and the other 2 each have 1 so far.
Yeah, Doc will pitch in. He'll go grab a couple.
Okay.
Is there anything?
These are pretty good size, probably like 3 feet on the longest side.
Okay. I mean, yeah, Doc is obviously pretty well built and not as strong as Tyr or Vorn, but sort of as a rigid frame. Is there anything else here that Doc notices? Like anything else in this cavern that they should be aware of?
So, as you are sort of, and you following suit with the others, you're able to sort of crouch down in this bag. Basically, the front of the canvas lowers down. You can roll the egg in and just sort of pull up and fasten these things to hold these. They seem to be very purpose-built, these harnesses.
Mm-hmm.
Looking around, I would like you to make an investigation check.
You can do it. Okay, that's not so great. That is 18. And oh, sorry, 18 plus. Doc's eyes flash white, and he feels a red a red wash of rage cover his face. All he sees is his hands flying across a desk, digging below papers and tossing open books, and he just keeps repeating, "Where is it? Where is it?" And that's actually a total of 22.
You can see that there is sort of in this chamber. It's almost like what you notice with that what'd you say, 22?
Mm-hmm.
Is there's a section near the back of the chamber where some of the dust has been piled up, and instead of a tunnel just being carved directly into this rock / bone, it was done in a way that it kind of comes in at an angle and creates this almost like concealer wall. And you just happen to, as you're looking around, you notice that these two surfaces don't match up, and looking, you see there's another tunnel that disappears behind that wall, and you can sort of see from the ambient light that seems to filter in through this place that there is a you can see light seems to sort of play and dance around a little bit, like as if light reflecting off of the surface of water or multiple shiny objects.
Okay. Yeah, Doc will head down.
So moving towards there, the Master-at-Arms rider turns to you. Where are you going? We've got the eggs.
There's a tunnel. I'm going to go look and see what's here. I'll meet you back at the ship.
And he motions to the other two, and they actually move in behind you.
Okay.
You see as they begin moving through that they pull out these long... they're holding them like weapons. They are long and metal with almost like miniature versions of the cannon on the ship. Okay. They have wooden bits, and they seem to hold them almost like a crossbow, but there's no cross brace. As you begin moving down that tunnel, you don't move very far, and you see another chamber. And this chamber is filled with, almost looks as if it was just shoved in here. Just mounds and mounds of coins of all denominations. There's gemstones and objects, swords and other things, armor and hats and helms and things. Just a massive cache of treasure in here.
Doc is going to cast Detect Magic.
Okay.
As an action.
Alrighty. Roll a d20 and add 6 to it.
Natural 1.
You hear another roar from outside, and then you hear the explosion of the dragon cannon, but it sounds louder, and this entire structure shudders, and dust and rocks begin to fall around you. And the Master-at-Arms looks at you and says, we can't stay in here much longer. As you cast Detect Magic, there's definitely some things that are pinging. I'm gonna say for the moment, roll me. Where is the freaking thing? I think this is what I wanted. Okay, so sorry, I have this is one of those cases where I've got like a million tabs open.
Mm-hmm.
Let me find the right tab. Lunar Dragon is. I'm gonna make sure I get the right one. Okay, so roll a D100.
Mm-hmm. 44.
Roll a D6.
6.
There are 6 different items that are glowing with magic.
Okay. Doc is gonna walk over. Doc is gonna go over to the first one. With his free object interaction, he's gonna pick it up, stash in his bag.
It's a scroll case.
Okay. And then with his action, he's gonna walk over and pick up the next thing and shove it in his bag.
This is a. This one you find is a very ornate crystal decanter with the easily recognizable, sizable dose of healing potion. This is a superior healing potion.
Okay.
And you can absolutely grab the other 4 items if you want.
Yeah, great.
So quickly just gathering things up. You find another scroll case. You find another potion bottle. You find what looks like a piece of a wind chime. It's like a single hollow tube, but it's glowing with enchantment music, enchantment magic. And you find what looks like a very ornate looking, like, take your average backpack, and for the most part what you've seen amongst yourself and your friends are backpacks that are very utilitarian. They're functional. This looks to be very functional and very stylish. This is the D&D Louis Vuitton of backpacks. In fact, there is a patch across the back in sort of a diamond shape, and there is a very stylized monogram that is 3 H's.
Okay. So Doc will pick all that stuff up. He will. So he's concerned about the time. His allies have noted the time, and so he's going to open up that backpack. And as he's walking out, he is just going to sort of drag it along the ground to pick up as many coins as he could as he exits.
You find as you're doing that there's way more coins and gems and things that are going into this bag than you would have thought possible. It seems to have a much bigger capacity on the inside than the outside.
Okay.
So you're able to get a pretty hefty amount of these coins and things. And then you notice that the others are also gathering up a bunch of what they can, though they can't carry nearly as much. They're just trying to shove it in next to the eggs that they have.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then the Master-at-Arms says, "All right, we've got to go." And he begins leading the way, moving quickly through these tunnels. As you hear this sort of screeching sound, and you can hear much smaller explosions. These sort of
as they're leaving, Doc is actually going to go into his book, and he's going to scribble something down quickly. And he's going to tear the page out, and he's going to roll it up, and he's going to put it in his pocket, and then he's going to continue leaving.
As your party begins moving through, you get back into that main tunnel, and the Master-at-Arms rider goes, "By all the gods." And you can see over his shoulder that the Leviathan is listing sideways. That beautiful brass dragon's cannon, the whole front end is just splayed apart. Looks like something exploded in the barrel.
Mm-hmm.
Smoke is just billowing up from it. You can see a big gash in the deck at the back end of the cannon. You see that there are several places where it's iced over, and the dragon is flying around it. It's already beginning to turn around, making its way to where the stern is going to be facing you. And you can just see across the back of it what we in the business, Gary, call the ass name, as it says Leviathan across the ample backside of this ship. And Master-at-Arms Rider says, "It's now or never." And he backs up and he takes a run and he leaps forward, and you just see him flying towards this Leviathan, and the others quickly follow behind. Oh, they all made it.
Doc will...
As you prepare yourself to follow suit, Doc, you hear in your head a resonant voice that says, "Ah, there you are."
Yes, here I am. And here you are. Soul of a lunar dragon in the form of a planet, right?
I am no dragon. I was once a god.
Oh, well, hello.
This will be not our last time meeting. For you, this is the first time you have ever met me. But it is the last time I will ever meet you.
Oh.
Keep your mind open. All of you.
Why did you call me here?
So that I could see you one last time. Before you dig deeper into yourselves. It will all become clear with time and perseverance.
Doc is going to he's gonna lift the pack off of his shoulder, and he's going to slide something into the front, and actually, wait, hang on. Is he gonna do that? No, forget that. He's just going to, on the magic decanter, he's going to wrap his note around it. And he's going to say, "So what did you want me to know?"
I wanted you to know that I exist. That I have a vested interest in the state of every facet of your soul. You are not alone.
Yes. Yes, I know. I can hear it.
In every voice, in every heartbeat, in every question, every stroke of a blade or a pen, every arcane spell cast, I am there with you. I always have been.
Well, I suppose I've always known, or would know. Time is a very strange thing.
Speaking of time, yours is running out.
Yes. Yes, you're right. Doc is going to he's going to take the contraption off of himself, and he's going to shove one of the eggs into the haversack, and he's going to put the decanter. He's going to replace the decanter in the place where the egg was, and he's going to push it, the package, toward the Leviathan. And he's going to take the haversack and he's going to put it on his straps, or on his back, and he's going to say to the voice that's inside of his head, he's going to say, "I know that we'll see you again. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but sometime." And he's going to tighten his cloak, and he's going to return to the material plane.
And as you do this, you feel a shift in the sound, in the temperature. Feel gravity pull a little harder at you as the sounds that you were hearing seem to sort of recede, as if you're waking from a dream, or what perhaps you imagine a dream to be, as you don't sleep. And you hear instead the sounds of birds beginning to rise. You see the first signs of the sunlight as the sun is just beginning to rise. As you are once again back in the alley in Olliston's hold.
Doc is going to shift the sack off of his shoulder, and he's going to open it up, and he's going to reach his hand in, and he's gently going to caress the obsidian egg that is inside the haversack. And he's going to glance down at the ground, and there's a puddle. And he's struck by his reflection, because while it's him, the face is smiling, a bright, wide, menacing smile.
And that is where we're going to end this interlude. All right. That was a ride.
I would say so.
Did you know you were going to Wild Space?
I didn't. No, I didn't.
I wondered if I had played it sly enough that you didn't fully know what to expect.
Yeah, you did. I definitely didn't expect that. I honestly expected more of a being as opposed to Wild Space. But no, that ended up great. I mean, I have a dragon egg now, so that worked out. Did you expect me to take off with the dragon egg?
I knew that once you went with them, that there was a chance that you were going to take any number of things. We'll resolve offline some of the aspects of what you actually have.
Sure.
And you can let me know offline what your note said that you left with the...
Oh, yeah.
And to be clear, when you said decanter, was that the superior healing potion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, so really it was more about just passing the note. Originally I was planning on taking both eggs, but then I changed my mind, so.
So, with that interlude, we have, for the first time, confirmed, Spelljammer confirmed in our world. And as many people who watch these games on MTD know, it's a shared world, which means this is the first time Spelljammer has been confirmed in the shared world of my Forgotten Realms, our Forgotten Realms. But you had to get there through the powers of a magical item that let you sort of plane shift. So who knows if and when.
For those watching at home, when Jake gave the Robe of Stars to Doc, he had no idea that I could do this. So it all stemmed from the ability. I've known what the sort of hook was going to be, but that was it.
What was great about this, because I told you this, you got the Robe of Stars from the Medusa's lair. Because you went up behind and it was a random magical item that occurred. It was what you rolled.
Oh god.
Or I rolled. I don't remember, but it was just okay, that's what's there. And the funny thing is, I told you when you got it and you told me what you wanted to do with it. I have at least 2 or 3 different characters that have this magic item and have used its primary property multiple times. My favorite thing to do with it is take whatever cloak or jacket I'm wearing and use it as a liner. So, and for those that don't know, a Robe of Stars lets you pull stars and throw them like magic missiles. I had never once in all of my nearly 10 years of playing 5th edition read that last paragraph. That you can traverse to the astral plane. Never once read that. That's thanks to my ADHD preventing me from reading that last line. So, and that's literally all you told me for your hook. When I said give me 1 or 2 sentences, that's exactly what you did. And that's where I came up with. I decided, hey, let's go into Wild Space. Let's meet a Spelljammer ship and some. I actually, for those wondering, I had Gary rolling dice as a. Behind the scenes as a prelude to this. So you rolled this particular ship encounter. So you rolled the Bombard and the Leviathan, and you rolled for the lunar dragon encounter.
Oh, very cool.
Or actually, you can thank Allie for that one, because you said you had Allie roll that. So.
I did, yes. I didn't so much as have her roll it. I said, give me a number between 1 and 100.
And so, all of that to say, this is one of my favorite things about these kind of things and D&D in general, is I love the random aspects. Instead of planning a specific session, I left a lot of it up to chance and just said, hey, let's go for it. Which is pretty typical when you and I do these one-on-ones, is neither of us knows where it's going to go.
Not a clue.
But in both cases so far, it's involved a dragon. And I think we got a little bit more out of this.
Yeah.
Especially when watched as a sort of something that happened during the night of episode 67. So... All right, with that, this was our first interlude of 5 interludes. We are going to have an interlude with, I'm going to guess at the order based on my recording order, but we're going to have M for the first time doing an interlude. But M is going to be doing an interlude that is both Togo and Marda. Since M is sort of played both of these characters, and we're gonna do actually I don't know. Oh no, so Carrie is up next after that, so we're gonna be looking at Tira, and we're gonna be seeing a little bit more of Tira's background with the orcs that she was raised by, and then I don't know in which orders with Mizya and Vornushka, but I will tell you, in the last interlude with Ricky, we saw Vorn's story and up to where Vorn got his mark of shame from his sister. With Vornushka, we are going to see at that moment where they split and went their separate ways, we are going to learn about Vornushka.
Oh, very cool.
So it's going to be very cool. So you can catch those all throughout the month of December. Stay tuned. Follow me on Twitter at MTD_Jake, or on the Hive social at MTDJake, where I will keep everybody up to date on this, as well as if we have anything else that might be going on throughout the month of December, or more importantly, near the end of December. Stay tuned for more information. Thank you, everybody who tuned in tonight to join us for this. We appreciate you so much. Thank you if you're somebody that likes to lurk quietly in the chat. We appreciate you as well. And future Jake, if you're there, which you should be, we'll probably set up a raid to somebody, so get ready to raid over to some awesome channel. Tell them MTD sent you, and thank you to Gary. An absolute pleasure, as always, and without whom this would just be me talking to myself for a couple hours. With that, we're going to go ahead and end the stream the same way we end every stream. You can say it with me if you want.